All right, well, I know the old saying that nobody gives a shit about your fantasy team, but I give a shit about mine, and I'm going to talk about it. And if you want to hear me talk about it, come on right ahead. This is my first time drafting in a point per reception league. I've never played in PPR before, so it was certainly an adjustment. When I first started playing fantasy football, I always had the attitude that running backs win leagues, and more year after year since I started right around, I'd say, 2007 or so, right around the heyday of LaDainian Tomlinson's career. That's become less and less the case. Running backs become just gradually less important in fantasy football. It is true that wide receivers win leagues in this day and age. So, with that being said, I made my first pick this year a Jacksonville Jaguar. Never thought I would say that in a very long time. Allen Robinson, coming off of a really great year in which he had 14 touchdown receptions, 1,400 yards, catching passes from Blake Bortles in Jacksonville. He's clearly the number one target, though. Allen Hurns will get his as well. I really like Allen Robinson. I passed on the likes of Ezekiel Elliott and Rob Gronkowski and AJ Green to pick him up. But I love AJ Green. Don't get me wrong. I think he might be the best NFL receiver, or certainly up there. But his knee injury really scared me a lot. And of course he's not on the same talent level per se as the likes of Odell Beckham Jr. and Antonio Brown, who went 1 and 2 in this draft, not surprisingly. So at the turn, old habits die hard. I took Lamar Miller. I know that he's a very talented running back. He was criminally underused in Miami. I mean, really, just 194 attempts with his talent level, 872 yards and 8 touchdowns. Those numbers, I think, are going to skyrocket in Houston, where I think he will get all the work he can handle, and it should be interesting to see from a PPR standpoint how many catches he can get. A guy who I'm not necessarily counting on getting catches, but still believe he will get a bunch of yards. Once I made that turn, my third pick was C.J. Anderson from Denver. Last year had 5 touchdowns and 720 rushing yards, so not the most exciting numbers necessarily, but he is going to see an increased workload in Denver, especially now that Peyton Manning's gone. I think Denver's going to have a more conservative offense, so I'm really excited to see what he can do. Now, a move that is a real calculated risk on my part that I'm not really sure about. Once I had my fifth pick, I wasn't really sure which direction to go. Jarvis Landry could become a PPR monster considering Brian Tannehill just locks onto him. He just gets fixated on him. I really thought long and hard about him, and I thought about 2 Colts receivers. T.Y. Hilton is widely regarded as the number 1 target. I'm not so sure. I'm a big believer in Donte Moncrief, who in a very down year for Andrew Luck has had, or last season I'm saying, it had 733 receiving yards, 6 touchdown catches. Pretty good numbers when you consider that his main quarterback was out for so long. I'm a big fan of Moncrief. He's been tearing it up in the preseason. The biggest glaring hole in my team is without question tight end. There came a point where I just saw so many good tight ends coming off the board that I was like, well, I'll just load up on my first line of reserves. Tyler Eifert is going to be out for quite some time. He's my main tight end. He's hoping to be back by week 4. More realistically, from what I hear, it's more looking like week 6. So as his backup, looking a little bit further down my roster, I went with Charles Clay of Buffalo. I passed on Martellus Bennett to take him. He looks like he'll be ready to go for week 1. Again, a weak spot. I could be looking to trade for a top-end tight end, especially if some players pan out for me, like Demaryius Thomas. I was so surprised to see him available past round 5. I believe I got him in round 6 or 7. He's going to be my flex man starting things off, and very excited to see what he can do with Peyton Manning gone. I mean, he's a guy who got it done with Tim Tebow as his quarterback. Let's not forget that Demaryius Thomas does not need a top-end quarterback like Peyton Manning to put up great fantasy numbers. So I think people are really down on him, and understandably so, with Peyton retired. But, I consider him to be a good buy low guy in this instance. Now, Melvin Gordon is a sleeper running back on the Chargers. He's going to be the main guy out there. San Diego is a passing offense with Philip Rivers. I understand that, but I think he'll be a very high level option off my bench. Same thing can be said for Ameer Abdullah. He's going to be competing with Theo Riddick in the backfield, but Abdullah is a very talented sleeper, and I think he could really go off for me and eventually become trade bait, if you will. So Abdullah last year had only 2 touchdowns and 597 yards, but he was just kind of getting started. So kind of one of those sleeper picks you take later on when you're trying to have fun. And speaking of fun, Devin Funchess, a guy who's going to be the number 2 receiver, I think, in Carolina. Cam Newton's second option in terms of wide receivers. Obviously, you've got to remember Greg Olsen at tight end. So probably the 3rd receiving option for Cam Newton. Devin Funchess had 5 touchdown grabs last year. I think he could really go off this year. Who knows if Kelvin Benjamin can stay healthy all year. I'm very happy with that pick. And, in terms of a guy who's been a sleeper for so long that he's practically been in a coma, Christine Michael, I've had high hopes for him for a long time. He left Seattle, went to Dallas, now he's back in Seattle. I value Michael highly as a sleeper, deep sleeper, borderline comatose, because you really cannot count on Thomas Rawls to stay healthy in Seattle. So I'm intrigued to see what he can do. I'm happy with my backup quarterback selection with Derek Carr. He's going to be backing up Andrew Luck, so I'm going to get really excited when Andrew Luck throws touchdown passes to Donte Moncrief, because that'll be points galore for me. But Derek Carr, I really think I could end up starting him over Luck some weeks. He's really developing his offense in Oakland. He could really get the ball rolling this year. The Raiders are rapidly improving just when they might be moving their team's physical location. It's funny how things work out there, but we shall see. So, but in terms of the biggest steal of the draft, I believe I got him in round 9 or 10 or so, late on in the draft. Josh Gordon has the potential to be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football from weeks 4 on down the road, or I should say week 5, since he's serving a 4-game suspension. What he did his last full season in the NFL was nothing short of incredible, and considering that he is the 4th receiver that I drafted, feeling very, very excited about what he could bring to the table. So all in all, pretty happy with my draft. I played it safe in some picks, but took some risks in others, and I was able to nab the sleepers that I targeted, round by round, tier by tier. So very happy about that. Perhaps I could cash in with some trades down the road. But everyone tends to be happy with their fantasy drafts oftentimes, as long as it's not a complete disaster, although not happy with the tight end situation. So I've been throwing the word happy around way too much. I think that means I should wrap up this video, but time will tell, I guess, how I perform in fantasy this year. So if you're watching, I wish you the best of luck and hope you wish me the same. So take care. Thanks so much.